Hello, this is episode number 87 of the When Marriage Hurts podcast. And on this podcast, I want to tell you some of the health challenges that I have faced since leaving this abusive marriage that I was in for 11 years. I think that we've, at least on this podcast, I have shared with you some of the health challenges I had while in the marriage. And if you haven't listened to that, you can find it on episode number 71, where I shared just a bit of the health challenges I faced while married. But on today's episode, I want to talk about some of the health challenges that victims of emotional abuse have to deal with after they've actually left the marriage. So don't go nowhere, and I will be right back after this. Hey sis, welcome to the When Marriage Hurts podcast. I'm your host, Ola Davis. My mission is to help Christian women in painful marriages become aware of the marriage lies our society and religion has programmed our heads with. Are you tired of marriage advice that always blames you for whatever goes wrong in your marriage? Have you attended all the marriage seminars seeking help only to be blamed and shamed for your marriage problems? Has your marriage become the source of your greatest pain? Have you lost hope of being happily married? Are you just hanging in for the sake of your kids? I've been there before. I know what it is like to feel alone in marriage, yet feel trapped by the wedding vows that I made. Together, we will discover scriptural truths that set us free from the pain so that healing can begin. Oh yeah, let's shake some tables. Welcome back. Yes, so the reason I wanted to talk about this on the podcast is because I recently had a client, coaching client, and this is someone that I've been coaching for several months now before I even actually rolled out my coaching program. And maybe I should talk a little bit about that right now. So I now coach women that need some kind of clarity or need someone to talk to. Some of you have messaged me saying that you have counselors or you have a therapist, but you also wanted to talk to someone who's Christian and wondered if I could coach you through some issues that you're having in marriage. So for those who want to consider that or are interested in that, I do have a coaching program launched. I have limited openings right now, and you can find the link to book a session with me to get some clarity. But like I said, I have limited openings for the month of August and September. But if you look at my availability calendar on that link and you don't find an ideal time that can work for you, you can shoot me an email at oladavis360@gmail.com. That's OLADAVIES 360@gmail.com, and then we might be able to work out a time. Anyway, so like I was saying, this coaching client asked me and said, Ola, what is it like to be divorced? Like what kind of, how did it feel? So they weren't asking about finances or anything like that. They were asking about how it impacted my health, how my body felt. And I had to be honest. I had to be honest with this lady. I was like, I didn't find it easy at all. When I separated from my ex-husband, it was heartbreaking for me. It was heartbreaking. And I think sometimes women think that the women who leave this kind of marriages have no problem, or have no, they don't find it difficult to leave those kind of marriages. That is not true at all. If it was easy for those women to leave, they would have left a lot sooner. They would have left like a year into the marriage. They would have left even 6 months in. They would have left at the very first sign of verbal abuse, of being put down, of being emotionally abused, of being manipulated psychologically. They would have left at the very first sign of that. So when a person stays for 7 or 10 or 15 years or more, is because living, first of all, some of them didn't even consider it as an option, and when they did think of it, it just seemed too hard. So when I left, when we became separated, I went through a period of depression. But at the time I thought that I was depressed because, this marriage wasn't going to be the wonderful story that I thought it was going to be. It wasn't going to be what I had dreamt about. And, the hope that I had that things were going to get better just wasn't feasible. I had to face the fact that I wasn't going to have that happily ever after with this man. And at the time, I thought that was the reason why I was depressed. But in hindsight, I think I had been depressed for most of the marriage, actually. And I think a lot of women that have left also feel the same way. When you're in an emotionally abusive marriage where you've been put down for years, you've been verbally abused, you've been given the silent treatment, you've been made to feel like you do not matter, you've been made to feel like there's something wrong with you. That takes a toll on you over a period of years. And we just tend to slide into this state of depression. But sometimes the depression presents differently than what we know to be depression. And the fact that we are also distracted by the marriage itself can make it difficult to identify the fact that we are depressed or to see the signs. Now, not everybody has their depression presents in, just general lack of interest, not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to do their normal personal hygiene stuff. Those are the kind of signs and symptoms that everyone tends to know. But when your marriage and the abuse in the marriage is what's the major contributing factor to that depression, it's possible to be depressed and not know it. It's possible to be depressed and still be high functioning, what they call high functioning depression, where you still get up every day, you still take care of your kids, you still show up to work, you still do everything you do around the house, you still maybe even hang out with friends or family, but you're never really fully present. Whatever you're doing, you're never fully present because you're just ruminating and brooding over your marriage and your spouse, and you could never really get that out of your mind. It just runs in the background of your mind, right? But on the outside, everything looks good. No one notices that you're in that state, because you still do everything you normally do. You still, your quote unquote normal self as far as everyone else is concerned. So now looking back, I do recognize that I didn't get depressed when I left the marriage. I had been depressed for years while I was in the marriage. What shifted the moment I left was that because I was now out of the toxic environment, I had nothing to distract me from the depression anymore. It was like for years the depression had been tapping on my shoulder like, hey, I'm here, do something about me, address me, and I wasn't even paying attention because I was just trying to survive. I was just in survivor mode. But the moment I was out of the marriage, there was nothing to distract me from that shoulder tapping I was getting from depression anymore. So it just hit me full force, right? And I went and saw my doctor and told my doctor, I was like, hey, listen, I've been depressed before, and it got to a point where I was suicidal. I don't want to get to that point. I have little kids to take care of. I don't have a support system. Can you help me? And I was in tears in the doctor's office with my kids because I couldn't leave them at home. I took them everywhere with me. So you can imagine having a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old at the time in the doctor's office, in the room with the doctor, and I'm telling the doctor this, and I'm in tears. So yeah, and I got put on medication, which really did help. Another health issue I had that seemed to have its onset. Okay, guys, I think I lost my train of thought there. Okay, I think what I was trying to say is another health symptom I had was just very severe fatigue, just severe fatigue, just really tired. Eventually this was diagnosed as severely low iron because I just had really weird symptoms. At a point I thought I had dementia, but I thought I was too young to have dementia, but then I was having dementia symptoms, but it turns out my iron was just extremely low. So that got treated. What else? I've shared with you before, especially on episode 71, about blood pressure issues. So that got really under control. That's something I had battled with even while in the marriage, and it really got improved, very improved after I left the marriage actually. So why am I sharing all of this with you? I know that a number of women will listen to this podcast. I've made a decision to stay in the marriage, for as long as they leave or their spouse leaves. Some have made a decision to stay for a period of time for whatever reason. They're probably giving themselves a time period. Oh, I'll leave in 2 years. I'll leave in 5 years. I'll leave when I'm done with school. I'll leave when my kids are 18. Whatever decision that you think is best for you that you've made, I respect that. There are some women that just want to leave ASAP, right? As soon as possible. I share all of this with you so that, especially for those who do plan to leave at some point, so that when you leave, and it starts to really hit you, the grief, right? Not just the health symptoms now, but the grief of it all, the mental health symptoms, right? Starts to hit you once you leave, that you have an understanding that this is something that started, or this is something that was brought on by the fact that you were married to an abusive person for years. You understand what I mean? So it's not like you're going from good health to bad health. Like your health didn't turn bad because you left the marriage. Your health turned bad because you were in a close, intimate relationship with someone that abused you for years. It's important to keep that in mind, because I think sometimes women get so confused and they're like, oh, maybe I'm so sick now and I'm so depressed because I left. Maybe God is trying to tell me that I made the wrong decision by leaving. No, my dear. I'm telling you, I have heard from loads and loads and loads of women that have left their abusive marriages, that are struggling one way or the other, whether it's financially or health-wise. And even those women, even at their saddest, even in their most depressed state, even in their most broke state, they have never regretted. I'm telling you, I have never met a single one that said, I wish I had stayed. The only kind of regret that I hear them express, aside from the obvious, oh, I wish I never married him, the only other kind of regret that I hear them express is, I wish I had left sooner. Even when they are struggling after the divorce, they still all say, I wished I had left sooner. All right, so that's where I'm going to wrap it up on today's episode. I hope it helps someone. An announcement before I leave. I want you to know that I am taking a break from social media. And by social media, I mean mainly Instagram and TikTok. I don't even think I've told you ladies about my TikTok account. But I'm taking a break from those to focus more on the podcast. But I would still be active in our private Facebook group, because that's not a group for the public. It's just for you ladies that have joined the group. And the private Facebook group is at When Marriage Hurts. So I'm still going to be on there. And I just want to focus more on creating content on the podcast. So that's why I'm really stepping back from social media, and also to have some time to myself. I think I've been spending a lot of time creating content on social media. So I want to devote some more time to, just pouring into myself so that I can bring more value to you ladies. So I say all of that to let you know that if you send me a direct message on Instagram, it might take me a while to see that, because I'm not on there. I'm not going to be on there as much as I used to. So a better way to reach me is to send an email to that email address, which I'll be putting in the show notes. Or if you are wanting coaching, you can just go directly to the link to book a session, and you're going to find that in the show notes as well. So, that's it from me this week, ladies. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead as August comes to a close. And if you've never left us a review on Apple Podcasts, please consider doing that. It just gives the podcast more exposure and helps other women trying to find a podcast like this one. Other women having challenges in their marriages, other women who are being emotionally abused and have no idea what's going on. and are looking for help, when you leave a review, it helps them find the podcast. So I would really, really appreciate if you could take a couple of minutes to do that if this podcast has helped you at all. Okay, ladies, stay safe. God bless you. Bye. Has this podcast blessed you? If yes, please head over to Apple Podcasts, When Marriage Hurts, and leave a written review for the show. It would be such a blessing to me to know that this show has impacted you in some ways. Also, share this podcast with a friend. Let's spread the word. Lastly, if you would like to be a part of a community of like-minded women of faith who are on a journey to living the best life God has for them despite their marriage challenges, join our Facebook group, When Marriage Hurts. Until next time, remember these words of Jesus. Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest.